Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink, and for the record, I'm aware that it's not Leipziger Schwarz, it's actually Leipziger Schwarz. And, you can probably tell by the German name. It's by the brand Rohrer Klingner, which I should probably just call R&K. I only lived in Berlin for like 2 months, and everyone spoke such perfect English because I was in this neighborhood where actually 2 neighborhoods met, and it was full of very international people, a lot of Middle Easterners, and everyone just defaulted to English because everybody spoke the same amount of German, which was not much. Anyways, yeah, my German accent is terrible. Leipziger Schwarz. And Schwarz, I know, means black. I probably should have looked up what Leipziger was, but yeah. So this is, I believe, their black ink. As you can tell from how it's moving around the vial. It's actually pretty easy to clean out of pens. Now, speaking of pens, the 2 I used were these, because apparently I wanted to be thematic. This is a JinHao X450, and I love my X450s because they tend to be pretty broad and pretty wet, and this one is. And then I also use this Sheaffer 100, which, though it says medium, it's actually more like a fine, if definitely a Western fine, and maybe slightly, yeah, but it's very, generally, this pen is very moderate. You know, it's absolutely not wet, it's not dry, it's very easygoing. However, something very strange happened with this ink in this pen. This started to flow a little on the wet side. Just this one. I don't know. So that was interesting. Now, I wanted to see if I could find some comparable inks. So here's R&K Black. And here's Mont Blanc Mystery Black, which I really hope you can see this. I don't know if the camera's going to show it. But there's some like hints of like purple and red through here, and this one has some interesting undertones going on. Pearl Noir, or sorry, Pearl Noir by JinHao. I don't speak French, I don't speak anything. They made me take sign language in school. That's just how language deficient I am. Anyways, it's definitely not as dark as R&K's black. Lamy Black, which, is not as dark, but doesn't have the undertones of interesting colors as this one does. And then I also included this, because this is my black, my beloved black, my go-to black. It is my black. I love it. As you can tell, there's very little shading, and where there is, it's from this paint knife actually digging into the paper. But, yeah, it is much darker than this one. I prefer my black inks to not have shading, to be very well saturated. Yeah, this is my perfect black ink right here. This one is a perfectly decent black. I'm just already in love with this one. So that is my opening caveat. Perfectly decent black. I just already found my black ink. So yeah. Alright, speaking of, now here's where we're going to see hints of those undertones I was talking about. Now here's how you're supposed to do the chromatography. And if my camera will stop freaking out, there we go. You can see where that initial drop was put. It's sort of like a hazy, almost salmon-y color. And then there's nothing, and then the salmon returns, and then you get this almost like sepia, and it goes into almost a purple, and you get this bright blue over the top. Now here's where I let it dry, which is not how you're supposed to do it. And it's largely the same. The dot maybe got a teeny bit darker, and it's resisting going up, but that's about it. Now, I wanted to see what this ink could stand up against. And so here's water. You can see those undertones now, right? If my camera will stop freaking out. You see the hints of blue, and you see the red underneath. Okay, the 1/3 bleach solution seriously turned it blue. Turned it like Windex blue. I don't know about that. Ammonia pen flesh broke it up, but it also started to break up the paper, so I had to sop it up quickly. And hydrogen peroxide just sort of messed with it and then started to eat through the paper, and I had to sop it up quickly. So yeah, it washed out perfectly well with just water, and quite easily, so there's that. Anyways, Paper test, top down in density, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. Yep. As we can see in the scrubby and in the writing, there's shading, which is not my preference. Honestly, I know it's a bit funny. I love shading in every color except black. But yeah, anyways, as you can see, you see what I mean by in the Sheaffer it was flowing wet? I mean, this is broad and wet. Didn't go that far. That one, I don't know. And I want you to look in the smears. Do you see the tick marks underneath? Do you see how you're getting some red in there? So that's interesting. But yeah, very well behaved. No bleed, no feather, no spread, no echo, no sheen. All good in that regard. Water test, not great. It dyed the page a bit, a whole lot of it's gone. I mean, the entire S from the X450 is gone. You can see the dots, and everything's turned that sort of salmony red. So next up is Fabriano, 85 grams per square meter. Tends to be able to handle inks that even Clairefontaine and Rhodia struggle with a bit. It's becoming my favorite paper. Now here, I really hope this comes through. Do you see the shading in there? And I really wish the camera would let you pick that up, but you can see these like hints of red underneath. And again, I want you to look at the tick marks. You can see the red where the initial lines were before it was smeared. Now that generally very moderate Sheaffer took 15 seconds, but the broad and wet JinHao took 19. I don't know. And then oddly, that X450 is where you get the most shading. It's also where it gets darkest. So that was weird. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. But the flow by itself was definitely just a little bit wet. I'd say maybe a 6. Not detrimentally wet, but if you have a pen that's already out of control wet, maybe don't pick this one. It's a perfectly decent black ink. In fact, I say here it's darker than several inks claiming to be black inks. I think we all know a few of them. But, yeah. Very well behaved. No bleed, no feather, no spread, no echo. No sheen, although here I say no she. Sometimes I need to pay attention to what I'm writing. Anyways, again, dyed the page a little bit, and the page is, it's vaguely blue-ish, and then the stuff that's underneath, again, we get that hint of red. There's really not much. It's very hard to read. That would not be fun to recover. Next up is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. And again, that Sheaffer was running wet, and yet it was still drying in 16 seconds. The broad and wet JinHao took 18, but it didn't smear that much. I don't have answers for these things. I'm just showing you what happened. And again, we see the red underneath and the tick marks. We see the shading. I know I'm probably one of the very few people who doesn't like shading in their black inks. So if you're into that, cool. Look into this. It's very interesting. You can definitely see in that X450 the shading. But yeah, very well behaved. No bleed, no feather, no spread, no echo. And I say maybe some echo, but I think that's mostly in the scrubby maybe. But yeah, no sheen. Again, dyed the page just a little bit. What's left, you can see like hints of that red. The dots are most noticeable. Everything else is really, really gone. Not a lot of water resistance here. Next up is Tomoe River paper, which is known for drawing out shading and sheen in dry times. And it did draw out the dry times. In fact, quite a bit from all the other papers. So, yeah, that fairly moderate Sheaffer took 25 seconds. That broad and wet JinHao took 29, which on this paper is not unheard of. And I feel like on here, I'm going to try and hold this still, you can really see the red underneath. But yeah, also we got sort of a hazy kind of a sheen. Oh, there we go. You can see it in the scrubby just a little bit. You can barely make it out in the writing, but it's there, and I'm definitely not going to get it on camera. And again, for some reason the X450 is showing the most shading. But yeah, I mean, it's hazy. You know, it's a hazy sheen. It's not like very distinct or like a halo sheen. Anyways, no bleed, no feather, no spread. I say there's maybe some echo, and I think that's true, but I mean, this is a black ink, even if it's not like the blackest black ink. And it's very thin paper. And, I mean, I did write with a pretty broad X450. That's, I mean, it follows logic. That makes sense. But if you're sensitive to it, you know, just, I mean, again, use logic. You're gonna know when you go into it. Now here, you can definitely see that red. Now this paper loves to let ink slide away when you add more water. It did. The advantage is it didn't really dye the page. But it also didn't leave a lot behind. But I think it's cool that what it did, you definitely get that like salmon-y kind of reddish color. The dots really remained, which was amusing. Now for the next 3 tests, actually, I just used that Sheaffer medium, even though it was acting oddly wet, except to write the name. That I used the X450. Now, as I was getting ready to do this test, I actually put it down in a little bit of water, and it soaked in so instantaneously that it had me a little bit worried. Now here, it gets a lot lighter, and it loses the shading. You know, it no longer looks like a very solid black. You get a lot of spread. Line width has increased a good deal. It gets very woolly. Yeah, there's feathering. There's a lot of bleed for such a moderate medium. But again, it's a fairly fine-ish European medium, and it's generally very moderate. But for some reason, this ink was just going through it real quick. But still, this is a lot. I mean, look up there. This was written with the X450, but this was with the Sheaffer 100. And it's everywhere. It is everywhere. It's pretty disastrous. And then something really weird happened when I did the water test. It started acting like chromatography paper and literally started pulling the water and the ink up into the rest of the paper. But what's kind of cool is we get this really distinct separation of color. You can see the red at the middle, the black trying to wash away, the blue shooting off. But it's still kind of difficult to look at because I feel like I'm wearing someone else's glasses. Very brr. But yeah, so don't get it wet. Which I feel like is also following logic. Anyways, here's Mead Notebook Paper. It's physically thinner than 20 pound. And lately this stuff has been feathering. And it has. And it feathers here. Not great. Not great. But could be worse. It looks pretty grayish. You can probably tell. It looks a little grayish. Dry time 1.5 seconds. Dried or soaked in instantly on the 20 pound. Not fantastic, but it really didn't do anywhere near as bad as I was expecting after seeing that 20 pound test. Now we do have a couple spots where it nearly comes through. We do have some echo, but look, even this X450, it got dark, but it didn't get all the way through. And it's kind of the same here. You get a lot of like echo, but it didn't come all the way through. It never once rendered onto the page below. Not a big problem there. This paper does tend to freak out when you add water, and it kind of did. As you can see, it feathered, it exploded. That would not be fun to try and recover. I wish I could explain the texture of this paper to you. It's so bizarre. But anyways, lastly is Moleskin Paper, which I hate because it hates ink. And it did something really weird to the color of this ink. Now here we almost get like, it's like the vaguest little hints of red. Here, it went green. What the heck happened? Do you see this? Like, it's green. It's green. I don't know why, but it's green. Took 6 seconds to dry. This texture is just nasty looking. And then let's just look at the word feathering. Yeah. I'd say that's ironic, but it would be improper use of the word ironic. Look at this. Oh, this is nasty. I don't know where this green shade comes from. That's weird. And then we get a lot of like little dots coming through. It's distracting. It's really not great. I hate this paper. And then this water test did something totally weird. It didn't dye the page at all, which is bizarre. And then it's like it doubled down on feathering and exploding. That would not be fun to try and recover. Ugh, I hate Moleskine. Anyways, there you go for your consideration. Rohrer Klingner Leipziger Schwarz, not Leipziger Schwarz. Yeah, R&K black. It's got some very interesting, like, red and blue notes to it, unless you put it on moleskin and then it turns green. I don't know. Yeah, if you like a black ink with shading and with some stuff going on under the surface, this is pretty nice. Essentially no water resistance. Yeah. Just some weird stuff. But, and for some reason, is there anyone out there who has tried to put this ink in a Sheaffer 100 or 300 or whatever, because that was weird. I've used it twice since doing this test, and it went back to normal. I don't know. Let me know down below. I'm kind of curious now. Yeah, anyways, for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.